Aotearoa Sounds.
What would you do to be safe behind four walls in your place? I wouldn't know it all. I've never been there before. You close your eyes so tightly, pretending that you can't see the burning of a stair. It is with you everywhere. Angel of mercy, can you touch her fear? Give her a voice. Give her a voice. Walk away, you don't have to stay. You cut to the bone, it's turned you to stone. Walk away, you're strong enough to say you don't own me. Gonna go my own way. Come on,
E ngā reo, e ngā mana, raurangatira mā tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome to our podcast series, Inspiring Journeys Through Music, presented by Sound Centre for New Zealand Music. Toi te arapuoru, ko Krystal Edwards aho. Today I'm joined by Kiino Krystal, Taisha, Tari and Ainslie to talk about their inspiring journeys through music as versatile artists and stalwarts of the New Zealand music industry. This is the first part of a two-part series. This series titled Inspiring Journeys Through Music, The Versatile Artists, Episode 3. Tuatahi rā ka mihi atu kia koutou, ngā wahine pūrotu, ngā manu tioriori o tō tātou nei motu o Aotearoa. Fantastic pleasure and honour to sit with you three. Tuatahi rā mōhio marika ai aho kia koe Taisha. Good to see you e te tuahine. Hopefully in the next coming months we will see a bit more of you with Māori Music Awards and of course Māori Music Month coming up very shortly around the corner. However, to you of course Tina, you are a throwback to my childhood. It was an absolute pleasure to always see a wahine like yourself on our stage and on the New Zealand TV screen going, oh yeah, my mum used to love you. She still does actually. So she's actually trying to hold her girl fan in the background there as I let her know that I was interviewing you today. And of course the wonderful Ainslie e te tuahine. So it's an absolute pleasure to hear your solstice kind of sweet serenading voice e hua. So hopefully we'll get to see a lot more of you in the near future. O te rā, kia koutou katoa, tuatahi rā, we'll just do a round of introductions just to settle us into this kōrero. So if we could please start with you, Taisha. Tēnā koe, ko wai koe, nōhea koe.
Kia ora everybody, I whakapapa to Ngā Tika Hanunu and Ngāpuhi. I currently live in Tamaki Makaurau and I'm very happy to be here with you all today.
Kia ora, tēnā koe Taisha, tēnā koe Ainslie, nōhea koe, ko wai koe, te tuahine.
Kia ora koutou, I whakapapa back to Rongo-Whakaata. I live in Paotahanui at the moment, which is in Porirua, in Wellington, and that's me.
Fantastic. Nice, short and sweet there. Tēnā koe te tuahine. And we'll finish, of course, with the wonderful Kiino Krystal. Tēnā koe te tuahine. Kai a koe te wā.
Tēnā koutou. Ko Kiino Krystal ahau, no te au Pōri, me Ngāti Pro ahau. I te taho o taku pāpā, no Ngāti Pro, i te taho o taku māma, no te au Pōri. I was born in Auckland, but I am currently residing in Sydney, just for a wee short space of time. So that's me.
Tēnā koe, and thank you once again, Tina, for joining us. I know the time frame will be a little bit different over there. And of course, kia koe Taish, ngā mihi nui kia koe. We know you're feeling a little bit under the weather, so we'll quickly charge on through. Yes, and she's here. This is what we call professionalism, ne, e wama. Yes, I just spent the last 2 days trying to get ready for this we as well. I was like, we're not missing it for the world, e wama. So, our pātai tuatahi, just to get the kōrero started, It's talking about the passion that you have for your artistry that you do. What is it that keeps that passion alive? What is that fire that keeps on burning in you? Tēnā koe, Taisha, if we could start with you, Ehua, what keeps the passion for you being a performer, singer-songwriter, Ehua?
Creativity. So just, and I see my music like a love affair, you know, and it's not always going to be, it has highs and lows, and I think you're always working at that love affair. So music for me has always been that, to always pushing myself for my own relevance, not anybody else's, and making sure that I'm always being as creative. And the older you get, you kind of just want to do those love projects, you know? So, and they, I don't know, the spin-off from those love projects are deeper and are learning. So I'm still learning, even though I'm 53, I'm still, haven't peaked, I don't think. So I'm looking for the top of that maunga, but I'm enjoying my journey. So that for me is what has kept me passionate, is that love affair, and knowing that its journey is always up and down, but it's, yeah, that's it.
Beautiful, Ehua. And I love it how you've used that kōrero around a love affair, because creativity is like that, eh? Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's a struggle, but in the end we still pull through because of that aroha nui. So thank you for that kōrero. Same pātai for you there, Ainslie. What's your passion? What's your drive that keeps you within your art form as a singer-songwriter, Ehua?
So I suppose for me more recently, the drive for me has been my tamariki, my two boys. Definitely my 10-year-old, because I've just had a wee boy and he's going to be 1 next month. Oh my gosh. So yeah, definitely my drive is whānau, and creating almost like a legacy for my tamariki to look up to, and almost just just inspire, to be able to inspire them to be all that they want to be.
Kia ora, kia ora. Tēnā koe. You know, whānau is te tūāpapai, our foundation, no matter where we go. And having your own little whānau there, Ainslie, wow, tuatahi, ngā mihi nui kia koe. Welcome to motherhood. And I hope it's exactly what Taisha's just spoken about, the love affair that you've got there, your ups and downs with your tamariki too, that drive your inspiration and your creativity within your mahi, ne?
Totally a love affair. I tautoko that one, because some days the creativity, it's just not there. It's not there, and that's when I kind of have to use the process of what I've learnt in the craft of songwriting. So you go back to the drawing board and you use those tools to kind of get the ideas and the juices flowing to create. But yeah, the time that I love to create is when it's happening and it's flowing and I'm surrounded with people that are inspiring me, like my producer in Littleton. And, you know, if you surround yourself with those sort of people, it's easy. It's an easy process, I find.
No, that's absolutely interesting, you know, because most of the artists that I have interviewed and spoken to, they like to sort of stay up in the wee hours, you know, from that 1 o'clock in the morning through to the 4 o'clock, you know, that's sort of like, I know, yeah, look, Taisha's like, what?
Not anymore, not with kids. Oh, no way. I'm in bed like hopefully by 9:30. Oh, my life has changed.
Yes. Kua huri te tai o rā rehua. Just carrying on, nā mihi nui kia koe tērā whakautu, but kia koe, the one and only Kiino Krystal. Wow, e te hoa. I must say, I've been looking forward to your answer around this. What's been your passion and your drive that keeps your creativity, your artistic flow, not only as a entertainer, but as a fabulous performer? Tēnā, kōrero mai.
Oh, thank you. Well, very inspirational kōrero from our two wahine here. Beautiful. I think at this stage of my life and my career, it's about being me. I've probably been through the same processes that these wonderful wahine are talking about. So you know, that whole ebb and flow of a career. I think there are times in your life where you feel that you need to control that. And I think my pathway has been very much relying on knowing that things would happen, that I would rise to the challenge and the occasion, because there have been many things put in front of me, and I really credit the fact that diversity and versatility has been massive in the years that I've been in the business, which is 47 years. I worked it out this morning. And when I think about it, there hasn't been very much that I've felt I couldn't do. So it's been the challenge. The creativity I've just relied on. I've just known in my gut that it would have to be there. So at this stage of my life, where I've kind of moved myself across here to Sydney for personal reasons, I'm relying very much on how I feel, sort of my gut, my instincts. And there comes a point, I think, where if you look back at a career, and I'm not saying it's over, not by a long shot, you need to give yourself time to just be. So I think that's at the moment, my passion is driven by the fact that I'm comfortable just being. There are always opportunities, there will always be opportunities. The songwriting thing for me has kind of been put to the side, and that's where I credit these two. I look at what they're doing and all our other wonderful wahine out there, and I think I've had a little try of that a few years ago where I did my own originals album. I'd never done that before. So I come from an era of music, of the early light entertainment days where basically things were just given to you. You know, we were singing cover versions and miming on television and all this sort of stuff. So the craft and the apprenticeship's always been there. But I think the highs and lows, and gosh, you know, in 47 years there's been a lot of stuff. I'm at a point where I'm just really enjoying being me. No pressure. If it's there, it's there. If it doesn't need to be, that's fine too. So, and I think I really believe that if you can find that space in your life, whānau for sure will always be there, always important at the top. Your own creativity will find you when the time is right. So I feel like I'm in a bit of a hiatus at the moment, and that's a good thing. I think we all need that space. Yeah.
Tēnā koe, tērā kōrero. That's absolutely beautiful, especially how you're saying that you're going with what you feel. You know, a lot of our mahi these days is mind-driven, you know, what we think is right, what we think we should be doing. But like you said, to just feel and go with that female intuition, that puku feeling, exactly what you're saying, I totally love and agree with you 100%. And I hope that in your present state, that where you are now, Tina, is that, like you said, just being is enough and it's satisfying your needs at where you're at right now, tēnā koe. Haere tonu tātou, one of the pātai that we are looking at too, just to open it up a little bit more, we understand, well, with all the interviews that I've done, we always talk about we govern ourselves by an affirmation or a whakatauki or some kind of pearls of wisdom that help us go through our career, or like we said, when we're in those mind blocks or in those dark times or anything like that, we have those kōrero that sort of pull us out of it. Tēnā koe, Taish, do you have any pearls of wisdom or whakatauki that you would that you'd like to share with our listeners around how do you get yourself going and staying in that kind of creative artistic flow?
I've got a whakatauki that I always use. It's very short and sharp. It's called "You don't ask, you don't get." And for me, that means don't be afraid to ask when you don't know, or you need help, or you feel like the person that you're talking to may have something that you have in common and that you can collab on. If you don't ask, you don't get. And there is no love loss. The second part to that is there is no love loss in their answer. If they say no, kei te pai, all good, there is no love loss. But you find if you walk through life asking questions, people are always ready to give a piece of themselves. And everything for me starts with a kōrero. It's really simple. So So that's one of my whakataukis, keeping it... What was the second part you asked? Sorry, aroha mai.
No, kei te pai. You pretty much answered it. Was that basically what were some pearls of wisdom or whakatauki that, like you said, that you govern yourself by whilst walking your career, your pathway as an artist?
Yeah, I think the other one would be know what your truth is, and follow that, because there's so much in the world. There's so much noise, especially in music, of what you should be doing, how you should be doing it. And you're right, Ainslie's right, there is a process, but sometimes those processes don't work. And especially for us as Māori. So I think just really take the time out, like Tina said, and that is a growth period. So I've often said when I'm sitting on the couch and I can sit there for an hour just thinking, and my partner comes up, he goes, "What are you doing?" And I says, "I'm working." I am. I'm sinking down, and I'm taking the time. That's how I operate. Everything's got to come from a thought first before you can action. And however long that thought process takes, especially as a creative, it's sometimes a very deep process. But I know where Tina's at too, and it's a beautiful place to be, to just be. And it's a very important space. But yeah, know your truth, and sometimes that takes a while to dig down and block the noise out, and surround yourself with people who have the same noise as you. As Ainslie said, surround yourself with people that do fire you. Not literally, but that fire up those creative juices, and then it is an enjoyable process, because music is one that should be enjoyed. It's the one thing in life where it is so beautiful. It doesn't need to be hard, and if it's hard, then you need to stop and have a break, go and have a cup of tea or a glass of wine, and yeah, do that. So that's my whakatauki around that.
Ātāhua rire nei e hoa. Absolutely beautiful. Thank you for sharing those pearls of wisdom. And same pātai to you there, Ainslie. Do you have some sort of whakatauki, affirmation, or pearls of wisdom that you like to carry with you whilst on your career, whilst on your artistic little journey there e te hoa?
I suppose I learnt from the best, like Tina. We started off doing Christmas in the Park, but long before that, Tina, you helped me out early in my career by giving me a lot of mahi that you couldn't do. That was like the early 2000s, I think. Yeah, I'd just come off my television show on McDonald's Young Entertainers. And
yes.
So, yeah, and you gave me so much work, and I just want to take this moment to say thank you. And I suppose that would be my whakatauki. It's to pass it on. And, I was a young performer then, and I'd always looked up to Tina. And it wasn't until later on I finally got to work with her on Christmas in the Park. But I suppose it would be to awhi the young, to awhi their talents and support them and do what you can to help them. And that helped me so much, Tina. So thank you.
Why don't you know it's time for me to go? The headaches we made yesterday are so small today. We need to move on, it's still going on. I know I try harder than you just to keep the color blue for you. Behind the mirrors of your soul, I was trying to think with your head, tearing you apart meant you were easy to be read. I didn't set out to hurt you, I only wanted us to shine. Lives are over, too sudden, then so is time.
Tino Aotearoa. I'm so glad you actually brought up McDonald's Young Entertainers, because as like I said, that was what I was thinking of with yourself and you too, Tina. It was one of those shows that all of New Zealand would engage with, you know, during the week. So thank you for bringing that up, because you were absolutely stunning, all those rangatahi at the time. Hoia, no kia koe, Tina, tēnā koe.
Aye. Yes, well, you know what? Just listening to these beautiful women share their thoughts, just sharing the love, you know, all of those things, knowing your truth, awhiing our young, you know, facing the fear and doing it anyway. We're in a business that's very challenging. You can, I mean, you know, when you sit in your own little space and you're doing your own personal creativity, that's one thing. But when you're out there facing a massive audience or facing an opportunity that you kind of go, wow, can I do this? I think all of those things tie up, and when you think about it, having the courage, sometimes we just kind of sit back on our laurels and go, yeah, I just do this naturally. I grew up and I had a voice and I could sing, and somebody said, why don't you go and sing in that talent quest? And one thing follows another and another. But it's still knowing yourself, knowing your own strength and trusting that. But that connectivity with people, the sharing of love, the sharing of people, and the kōrero, the interaction, the connectivity. So the connection is really, really important. And I think it flows through. You know, it's like you say, Ainslie, when I remember those times where I think, and it's funny because I was thinking about this last night when I looked at the questions, it's really important for wahine like ourselves to have a connection with each other, because we relate to what we do. So who else does? You know, we each have our own journey and our own pathway and our own careers, and crikey, they change, and we move direction, and somewhere along the line we all interact. I've worked heaps with Taisha, love this woman, and when I think about even in the early days, Ainslie, when you joined Jackie and I in Pop-Tarts for a minute, you know, I mean, there's another funny little side group, and Taisha and I were when Taisha was in Lady Killers a while back, which is, you know, still semi-happening, but I think the pearls of wisdom, when you think about it, it's just keeping the connection between us, sharing the love, sharing the music, facing the fear and doing it anyway. And I said that one as like a whakatauki, because when I think about it, throughout our lives we are challenged in this industry, and we are the only ones that can sit back and say to ourselves, yes, I can do this, or actually, no, it's not right for me at the time, and something else will come along instead. We're in control of our own destiny. I think that's the wonderful thing when we think about it. We have within our power to say yes or no, or to try something, and that's the other thing. It's like, let's try something and just see. It's too easy to kind of go, oh, no, I can't do that. And I come from an era, I guess I started in 1975, where, I don't know, I think when you're young, and I know that these beautiful wahine will relate to this, when you're young, you have no fear. You just don't. You just do it. And as we get older, we start to dissect and make these little kind of, not necessarily big decisions, minute decisions that make a difference, but it's kind of, you know, that word wisdom. We get to that point where people say, well, how do you gain that? Well, you don't even know that you are. You're just getting through a point in life where you realise you're handling your life differently, handling your career. It's all connected, absolutely all connected. And I think one of the key things for us as women in the music industry is that love of music and love of each other and love of sharing never goes away. Doesn't matter whether you're in a quiet period or not.
Mauri ora ki tērā whakautu. That was absolutely stunning. And I tautoko that, yes, connectivity, even though like I relate, I'm not much of an entertainer myself, but as an interviewer, as an MC, that's how, as a wahine, we've connected with all of these beautiful wahine like yourself, these fabulous divas before me. So tēnā koe I tērā kōrero koutou rā. Just, I've just noticed with our kōrero and just recognising the years between the three of you, this is a lot of years being in the industry, being a part of the music entertainment industry. My pātai is about comparison there. So I'll start with you again there, Taisha. Comparison to when you first started to what it looks like now. How do you feel the, not just the industry, but composition of song, the diversity perhaps too around the industry today? How do you feel that has impacted you as a kaiwaiata today e te hoa?
That's a big question. I suppose, echoing Tina's kōrero when you start, and you have recognised talent, I mean, you kind of like, so it's I was 15 out of school. I didn't even get to 16, and I was on the stage and travelling around the countries with various bands, and then doing lots of overseas tours and things with other people. And I suppose it is a little bit of that. Back then, it was a real live scene. We were sometimes 2 gigs a night, 5 days a week. It was real hard yakka. And I didn't know anything else, So the comparison to that today is 1 gig a week is like, what? That's way too much. And I think, you are grafting in those early years. And I feel for our young people. And like Ainslie, I push a lot of energy back into our young ones because, their perception of music is so different, that we grew up in an era where it was hands-on. And if you didn't get your harmony right, they would make you go over and over and over. And didn't even matter if it was a television series and they were all filming going, oh, how? It was real, that's how we learned. We learned on the ground with incredible musicians. It was not glamorous. It still isn't. And, and now I look at today and it's all about, for me, it's about the quality of work that I want to push myself into, and it is about that connection, and it's about what I want to say.
It's burning inside of me, a call from my heart, and it's guiding my destiny. So my journey can start.
I don't just want to say anything because someone's going, oh, here, look, have this money and say that. Well, no, I actually don't. That doesn't align with who I am and my values. I want to say these things. So that's the difference between now and then. And if I had to fill in for my mate Leon at Sky City not long ago, and it was a 10:30 start, and I was like, oh my God, I'm asleep by 10:30. I literally had to just put the eye sticks on my eyes. And I mean, Tina's a night owl. I know she's a night owl. She's up all hours. Me, I'm in bed by 8. Do you know, I want to lie there. I want to put my jammies and my dressing gown on. I've become a creature of habit, you know, to just do a gig for me these days. I'd rather be working on things that have meaning and a kaupapa attached. But yeah, I suppose that's the difference. We grew up in an era where everything was hands-on, full-on. You know, you drove around in a van. You didn't fly. You'd drive for 6 hours, get set up, pack down, drive back. Yeah, it's all that stuff. It was great. I don't want to do it again, though. No.
Those, you would have some golden moments in those times. There was some.
You don't understand. Well, that's a whole nother podcast.
A whole nother podcast. We might have to look at that, Toni. No, take that down at the tuahine. Just carrying on with you there, Ainslie, because, you know, you started your career so young, you know, practically a tamaiti, a young girl, you know. So with you starting way back then to where you currently are now, how do you find the comparison of the industry to then, right to now, for your experience, Ewa?
Well, for me, it started with the Smoke Free Rock Quest with my band way back then, like, you know, school days. And then the audition for television happened, which changed my life completely. So I suppose back then the huge difference is now we have social media. We have YouTube, we have Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Back then, we had a Sunday night show at 6:30 on TV2, and that was our social kind of gathering for most families of that era. So the big thing that has changed, I suppose, is the social media aspect of things. I mean, like, even Justin Bieber, he made it huge from YouTube. You know, so the era has definitely changed, and I suppose that I was just on that edge of when it started to get onto social media. I remember I was touring with John Rolls, and I was sort of like one of the only people on Facebook at that stage, and it just kind of started in New Zealand, and so we've been kind of through the whole, all of us wahine have been through that whole shift in the internet and social media. It's huge now, and it makes it so accessible for anyone, producers or anyone, to see what anybody is like, because everyone's uploading videos and doing TikTok moves and all sorts of stuff. So
just while I've got you too, Ainslie, do you think, even though it's much more accessible, do you think it's created or made it a little bit harder for producers and for others who may want to collab, you know, a little bit harder to actually find like a specific talent, because it's so, you know, everyone's out there now, like you said, on these platforms displaying their beautiful talents. Do you feel it's made it a little bit harder for the industry to sort of pinpoint, you know, good talent, you know, or...
Yeah, I suppose because it's so saturated, people now have got to have their own vibe. You know, they've got to have their own thing going on. Otherwise, you're not going to get picked up on. Like, it's just, there's so much, Like, you have to have a point of difference, and you have to have your message, and it has to be really clear, and you have to be very authentic. Otherwise, people aren't going to give a shit. Like, you know, you'll just be like another person uploading another YouTube video or something. You know, you've got to be a bit different these days. Whereas back then, we still had to work really hard. I mean, I'd worked so hard doing all my tap dancing competitions, doing all of bloody jazz, and I started off singing country music. Like, I had worked so hard before I eventually got onto television anyway. So it's not like you have to work. It's just a different way of working now.
Tēnā koe. And you're so right. I totally agree. Yeah, social media has made the industry rather saturated, and that's in all areas too. Not just our singer-songwriters, but also in the film industry, fashion. It is. It's totally saturated. It's finding, I guess, that uniqueness about you as a performer or as a artist. But thank you, tēnā koe te tuahine. Finishing off with the great Tina. As previously mentioned, you started in the 70s, was it? So from that era to now, Aotearoa, what's your thoughts around that comparison around the industry and the way it is?
Just picking up on what Ainslie said, yes, the benchmark is so high now. So I guess when I think about the way things were for me when I was a 15-year-old singer, similar to Ainslie actually, Battle of the Bands with my school band, and then auditioned for television. So sort of by the time I was almost 16, I was on my first telly show. But I think, you know what, for me, I actually didn't work that hard prior. I thought it was a hobby. I just used to sing with the family and sing in a talent quest at school and sing with my girlfriends, and went to Penrose High School and ended up in a school band with Kim Hart. Now there's a name from the past as well. Who was a contemporary of mine, as was Erina Clark. So those girls were around in my heyday or early days. So it was one of those things where light entertainment was thriving. And if you were in the right place, I auditioned for Opportunity Knocks with Ray Columbus sitting across the table. So they were looking for young female singers, and that was how I started. So you pick up the flow, and very, very quickly I had a manager, Lou Prime. Made a big difference to my career, because all of a sudden I didn't have to make any decisions. A couple of years after that, I won the Pacific Song Contest. Actually, I'll rephrase that, I didn't. Carl Doy won the Pacific Song Contest. I was merely the singer of the song. And strangely, people have said to me, wow, you're so lucky, that sort of launched your career in New Zealand. In a way, it kind of made me realise then it was no longer a hobby. It was going to be a full-time profession. And I think that's one of the things with the early days. It was kind of too easy to go, can I make a living out of this? Am I going to have to go to university and get myself an actual career? So, and then, of course, I moved across to Sydney in the early 80s, 1981. So the rest is history, but at the end of the day, the difference then, I think for me personally anyway, I didn't see it as being anything serious for quite a few years in. It was too good a time. And, picking up on what Taisha said, when you did get an opportunity and all of a sudden you were thrown in, you had a floor show to put together at the Crypt, Aladdin's, any of those early clubs in Auckland. I toured with Sir Howard through the country in 1978 with the Tangata Tour. You're learning your craft all the time, still learning. I mean, we never and we will never stop. But it was fun. Kind of wasn't even work. I mean, yes, you got money at the end of it all. And I think that's lovely. I think that's kind of one of those things where I look back and I think it was so kind of innocent in many ways. In many ways it wasn't. Obviously we were exposed to all sorts of things, but I mean, at the end of the day, you're from a solid family. I think having a strong Māori background too, and knowing that music throughout the years in my family, and I'm sure all of our families, was always our backbone. So when I think about now and listening to Ainslie's kōrero, I think it is so much harder. I think if you're a young performer trying to break in, you really have to be writing your own material in this industry, that's for sure. Otherwise, I mean, what's credible about singing somebody else's song? If you're doing a night of, the Lady Killers, for example, we're a covers group and we love it. We love it because what we've created is, Taisha will appreciate this. She was part of the Lady Killers for a long, long time. Attention to detail and harmony. So if you break up what we each do as kaiwaiata, it's not just about our creativity and creating our own thing and our own sound and our own original material. It comes right back to being a vocalist and being in a situation which I know we all love, finding and creating a beautiful sound. and that we can do together. How lucky are we? You can't sound fantastic on your own in harmony, that's for sure. So, and you know, it's wonderful that we can bring in all these aspects. But big difference, obviously, when I think about my early career, the business was so totally different. Now, what I did back in the day, I mean, here's a really good example, just quickly. Ready to Roll, we're not able to bring in original clips. I guess I'm talking 1978. So You're the One That I Want was a number one. They couldn't bring in the John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John clip. So they got myself and another singer, a guy who fronted a band called Salty Dog. Graham Chapman, his name was. We recorded it. And that clip with Graham and I ran for 18 weeks on Ready to Roll. Crazy. We weren't the original singers, but that was not available to TVNZ at the time. So those were the differences where that would be criminal now. You just, you know, I mean, you'd be put in jail for it. So, yeah, it's a crazy change. And, of course, the biggest change, as Ainslie has said, is the social media side of things. But, you know, I mean, we learn and we grow and we adapt over the years. So the business is different now. And we just all sit in the business the way it looks to us at the moment. I think we're very, very lucky because it's that longevity. We sustain the years and we will continue. Yeah, that's the one.
Walk away, you're strong enough to say you don't own me. Gonna go my own way. What would you do to be safe? Be high up four walls in your place. I wouldn't know at all. I've never been there before.
Inspiring journeys through music, the versatile artists. A podcast produced by SOUNZ Centre for New Zealand Music, Toi Te Arapuoru. Presented by me, Krystal Edwards, with today's guests Kiino Krystal, Taisha Tari and Ainslie Allen. And that was the first part of a two-part series. Thanks to series producers Toni Huata and Roger Smith. Sound engineer Phil Brownlee, production assistance from Jonathan Engel, marketing Leoné Fenter, and executive producer Diana Marsh. Special thanks to Kiino Krystal for Walk Away, Taisha Tari for Karanga, and Ainslie Allen for Better Than Me. Thanks to the Stout Trust for providing the funding to make this podcast series. And thank you for listening. To hear or find out more about this podcast or for more information about the music of Aotearoa New Zealand, go to sounds.org.nz. That's SOUNZ. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.
Toi te Arapuoru, SOUNZ.